Hello and welcome to the Kick Sugar Summit, the world's first summit on the topic of sugar, sugar addiction, and sugar addiction recovery. We know that if we're going to reverse our rising rates of chronic disease, we need to reduce or eliminate our consumption of sugar and refined carbohydrates. We are here to help you do that. There are a lot of speakers on our summit and a lot of information. Don't get overwhelmed. Catch who you can and just let the rest go. Alternatively, you could purchase one of our Summit VIP packages, which comes with an awesome ebook summarizing the core insights of each speaker, a year's worth of resources from our world of experts, and access to a whole year of weekly drop-in live Q&As with me, Florence, your host. Thank you for being here. I hope you love the summit, and I hope it changes your life.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the 9th Annual Kick Sugar Summit. I'm Molly Painschab, your host today, here with a colleague and a very, I would say, close friend to me, Heidi Yver. I hope I'm saying that right. You can correct me. Please say it for our audience.
Yes, my name is Heidi Yver, and that was a beautiful pronunciation, Molly. Absolutely
American fine. Molly. All right. So Heidi has an original degree in chemical engineering and spent most of her career in international business development. She retrained in nutrition and lifestyle medicine following a personal health scare in her early 40s. She underwent extensive tests for early onset dementia following a prolonged period of increasing memory and concentration problems with a direct impact on her work capacity. Years later, she met Dr. Jen Unwin and food addiction specialist Bitten Johnson. And I know I'm saying it the Americanized way. She and Jen trained with Bitten. Heidi and her husband moved to the UK almost 9 years ago, and she started voluntary work in the most deprived areas of Crawley, West Sussex. She worked with nutrition and community centers and preschools, focusing on building awareness of the dangers of hidden sugars and the value of feeding children real foods. Since then, most of her work has been with mature adults running diabetes reversal programs for GP surgeries in Sussex and healthcare initiatives that build awareness and support the active recovery of people suffering with addiction-like symptoms related to foods. Heidi also initiated and runs the program Collaboration for Kids, CFK, as a much-needed antidote to KFC, which is a collaborative community-based approach to preventing metabolic health issues by focusing on inspiring children and their families to understand the dangers of many modern-day foods and to choose real and natural foods the way nature intended in their place. Welcome, Heidi. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Molly. I'm delighted to be here.
Yay. Well, I'm excited. I'm so excited because all the work that we do together, which I'm sure we'll get to a bit later, we don't really ever get the opportunity to talk about this project that you work on that I'm actually not involved in. And so I was just wondering, before we get there, can you kind of expound a little bit on your personal and professional journey? Like, how did you get to this place working in the ways that you now work?
Okay. So first of all, I have to say that I have to add a little yet when you said that you're not involved in this project, but that's maybe wishful thinking on my part. No, you've covered the basics of what happened to me. You know, I was working quite happily in a very exciting and enjoyable international career. But I was becoming more and more aware that I was struggling with memory and concentration problems. And when I went through these tests for early onset dementia and they turned out to be inconclusive, I started researching for myself because there had to be an explanation. It was a really scary thing that was happening. My husband was aware, friends around me were aware, and everybody was supporting me beautifully, but it just didn't make sense what was happening. One of the reasons they'd considered the early onset dementia was that my mother had just recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. So that was, it sort of, there seemed to be a potential connection there. But the long and the short of it is that I very soon realized that probably it did have something to do with my diabolical diet. I was very aware that I hadn't been eating the way I was brought up to eat. I was very lucky. I had a mother who was at home and who focused on cooking everything from scratch. But when I went off to university, I did as very many do, and I didn't cook from scratch, and I spent my time doing other things. So it was sort of fast food and that kind of thing. And realized then at this point that actually the vast majority of my diet, and I'm still ashamed to say it actually now, was chocolates and cakes and marzipan and sweet foods. I mean, that was pretty much what I lived on. And I traveled a lot. So, I was grabbing, I would have the odd good meal, but I realized then that it was my diet. And so I really taught myself a little bit about it, started to understand that maybe I needed to do something about it. I started changing my diet. I started trying to replace some of these rubbish foods with proper foods, realized how difficult that was. And I guess the rest is history. I retrained in nutrition. I didn't for many years realize that there was such a thing as food addiction. So that was thanks to Jen, and then after that, Bitten, that I realized that was one of my serious problems, that I was really addicted to these sweet foods. But then seeing the change in diet, the impact it had on my ability to concentrate and my memory and my, that made me able to consider studying again, which I wouldn't have dreamt was possible otherwise. And having then done that, I did study nutrition and then lifestyle medicine, and then I trained as an expert diabetes health coach. And that got me into that environment, the sort of metabolic health environment, first, interestingly, in the US. And then they signposted me to, Dr. Eric Westman signposted me to the UK and the public health collaboration. And then and that's where I started working then with, or not with the public health collaboration. I became a member there, but I started then working with local community projects. And then sorry, I'm talking a lot now, but just to finish that connection with and bring it to the Collaboration for Kids project. So most of my work was then with diabetic patients, more mature adults. I was doing a little bit of awareness building work with community centers, which was focused on younger parents, young children, and that part of the population. But what was happening in my work with diabetic patients, as soon as they recognized what their challenges were, then their immediate response was, I wish I'd known this sooner. And that was such an overwhelming reaction from people that it just made me think, look, this is absolutely crazy. We have to do something more preventative. We're dealing with this when people are in their 60s and 70s and 80s. We need to get to them an awful lot sooner. So yeah, that was the birth of the Collaboration for Kids project, inspired by a young 9-year-old who once described, I probably shouldn't say this on air. Can I be sued? Possibly.
About saying what a 9-year-old said?
What he said, yes, a 9-year-old said. He said, KFC, that's the kids' fattening center, isn't it? Completely spontaneously. So I hope neither he nor I can be sued for that. But that was really one of the inspirations.
Kids say the most amazing things, right? Like if we listen to them, they are just speaking their truth. And it's amazing how that can be the thing that just is our light bulb as adults and go, oh my gosh, they know. And now we need to do something about it. So can you tell us, okay, so it was inspired, and by your experiences, by this 9-year-old saying this thing, can you tell us what the Collaboration for Kids project is all about? Like, what does it cover? I mean, it's a big project, I imagine. So I'm here for all of it, whatever you can and are willing to share.
Oh, thank you, Molly. And that's so valuable to me, because we need all the help we can get. So it is as it says, a collaborative project. The idea is that we are going to work practically, collaborating on the ground and coming up with creative solutions that are going to work. And our two primary goals, we've got a set of 6 goals, and the 4 that I'm not going to go into detail on relate to how we can scale up and expand the project to add value as broadly as possible. But the first 2 specific goals are that we want children and their families to recognize the dangers of ultra-processed foods, and start on the basis of that knowledge and understanding, be inspired to replace them with real and natural foods the way nature intended. So that's our first goal, to whatever it is that we can come up with collaboratively, and we can talk about all the different people and organizations involved afterwards, but whatever we can do to create that inspiration in the community for children and their families. And then the second goal is to see an improvement in their physical and mental health as a result of it. So we're looking for people witnessing and saying, goodness, the kind of things I experienced myself, that my goodness, my brain is working again, is this right? Am I dreaming? Or is this, and then that wonderful realization that this must be because of what I've been doing these last weeks or months or whatever. So that's what we're trying to get to. And so as a result of that, a really important aspect of this is that we recognize that there are a lot of wonderful individuals and wonderful organizations out there that are already working in this space and already doing things that are having an impact. So CFK is trying to collaborate with these organizations and not reinvent any wheels where there already are good wheels that are rolling nicely, but where working with us is going to create more exposure, more opportunity, etc. So that's why we have we're trying to, within the community, meet children and families in different spaces of their lives. So in school settings, in sports settings, ideally even in food retail settings, if we can get partners in from the food retail sector. So we have that's what I mean about this community engagement collaboration, both identifying where we can meet children and families in a useful area where we can inspire them to look at alternative lifestyles to what they have today, but also where we can then involve parents, teachers, sports instructors, doctors, nurses, health coaches, etc.
Amazing. I was going to ask, so does that mean like pediatric offices? Does that mean dental offices, schools, daycares, preschools? I'm not really sure. It sounds like it's kind of across the board.
Absolutely. Yes, very much so. And you mentioned dentists, and I should have listed them as part of my list, because that's one of the really interesting areas. And we've got a few dentists who immediately were interested in joining this collaboration, because they say that, of course, we see the problems long before a doctor sees them. So involve us. We really do want children to be using their teeth, not just sucking on stuff and swallowing stuff. We don't want all those sweet foods and drinks, because of the way it's impacting their gums and their teeth. So involve us. So yes, absolutely. And of course, you also mentioned preschools. Very, very important, that part as well. and even we have a lovely lady who you know very well, who's involved in the program, who's also trying to encourage us to work on prenatal. Which of course is extremely important to help the parents before they become parents to understand the impact of the decisions they're making about food choices, both for themselves but also for their babies.
Oh, that's amazing. So I imagine you having all of these kind of like different areas that you're attempting to collaborate with for the kids, that can get a little messy, because I imagine everybody kind of has their own view on how they're going to do that. And maybe not, maybe I'm making some big assumptions here, but I'm wondering, like, what are those common key messages that these teams of people are attempting to convey to each other and then to the parents and to the children?
Okay, so yeah, that's you've covered a lot in that question. So let me try and pick it a little bit apart. So the potential mess is there, absolutely. And the complexity of trying to get different parts of the community to work together, to make the programs dovetail nicely with each other. Yes, there is complexity there. No question about it. And this is, I think, one of the points that is important to make is that we are not working to a time frame of a wash and go solution. We are working towards a time frame that is going to allow us to get the results we want. So where there is complexity, we deal with that complexity and we try to work around it and find the best solutions. Within the project itself, so talking about the key messages, so within the project itself, we have an education contents team that is responsible for all the education contents, for really identifying all the education contents that is going to be valuable in inspiring or in building the knowledge, I should say. The inspiring bit, we have other people helping with that. So we have a creative and visual media team. We have very marketing and you know other areas that are focused on the creative bit. So we try to give people a role in CFK that suits them, where they can play to their strengths and where they can bring in expertise from other people and don't have to sort of develop that expertise themselves. So if the contents team is working on the key messages, which by the way have to be evidence-based, so everything we do is based on recent science, recent evidence, and then they will produce that. They produce these key messages in a very I guess you could say a boring clinical type way, really. And then it's down to the discussion with the people who are going to be delivering, so the delivery teams, and then the creative people, to turn that into something that's going to be exciting, that's going to inspire a child or parents. So that, you know, one key message on you know, on the importance of now I'm going to be really boring, on the importance of including proteins in a diet, really very basic building block of a human body and brain, is very boring as a key message. But if that can be built into a story and a song and a little character in a storyline or a video or something for very young children, or turned into an app or a competition or a game or something like that for older children or families, then it's still the same key message, but trying to present it in a way that's going to appeal to and inspire different groups of the population.
It's amazing, you know, because I think about, here we are, we're interviewing for the Kick Sugar Summit. And what I'm hearing you say is it's not just railing at these parents and these children to like kick sugar, get rid of sugar, you're actually attempting to educate, like add these things into your diet, like more protein, more vegetables, more of these things. It's not necessarily demonizing sugar so much as it's saying like, let's pay attention to the things that we're putting into our body and let's make sure they're quality or something along those lines, nutritious.
Absolutely, Molly. Yeah, you've said that beautifully. And there's absolutely, if we don't have the basic building blocks to build and maintain a body and brain, then it doesn't matter what else we do. So those building blocks have to come first, and trying to help people to understand what those building blocks are. Living on donuts and carrot cake and marzipan and chocolates and the kind of thing I did for a period of my life is not going to build my body and brain. Does nothing. It gives me plenty of, I shouldn't say it does nothing. It gives me plenty of sugars and energy in that sense, but it makes me insulin resistant, which means that I can't use the sugars, which means that I don't have energy, and my brain started shutting down. So it's, yes, very much so. We're trying to get the positive messages across, the constructive positive messages across, to say we need this as a starting point. And then, of course, we need to add the bits that we all know so well in our work with food addiction, that sugars have that terrifying role of addling our brains just in itself. So yeah, that becomes that is also a part of it, but we start with the building blocks. Yeah.
When I think about these different teams, and they're all kind of at work doing their different things in their different environments, and you kind of described a bit about how that messaging might get through, how can you kind of talk to us a bit about like what, even if I just picked one, schools and teachers, can you kind of talk to me a bit about like how teachers can be involved, or is it on a larger level? Is it the teachers themselves specifically, or is it you're going to the schools and talking to the people who are in charge of the feeding of the children? Like, how does that play out? And like, what does that messaging then look like? Like, what are the roles, I guess, just to be a bit more specific?
Yeah, I love that question. Really lovely. And then I have to give you a real life example of what happened. So one of my colleagues, who's a doctor and works with metabolic health training for or awareness building and metabolic health courses for adults, both voluntarily and also in the corporate world. He was delivering a program to teachers, not for any other purpose other than that there was a group of teachers who were interested in their own metabolic health. So he delivered this program, and they got good benefits from it. I don't have the results that I can share with you, but the kind of thing that we see very often in our diabetic programs, where people, once they understand what's causing the high blood glucose levels and causing excess fat storage, and they try to do something about it, and they don't have food or sugar addiction, then they very often are very successful in regaining their health, but also losing weight. So he saw this, but then another outcome, which had not happened in any of his other groups, was that the resounding feedback from the teachers was, but what do we do about the children? Because they are fed rubbish at school. So he came to me and he said, Heidi, we need collaboration for kids for this. And so that is a perfect example of where we then have a direct demand coming from the teachers to say, help us with this. So in that particular scenario, what we will do is to go in and say, okay, we have these key messages and these ways that we could potentially deliver them. Now, what would you like to do? Would you like to develop for us to develop a lesson plan with you, or maybe in the case of older adults, older children, teenagers, should we maybe do a co-creation program with them, where we give them the basics presented in a way that is going to work for them, and then ask them, how would you like to be told this? How would you like to tell your peers, or even help us educate your parents on this? So that's that kind of thing as well, you know, the co-creation idea. So there are various different ways, and we basically ask the different stakeholder groups, how do you see this working?
That's amazing. You know, as you were like sharing this, it makes me think of my children are much younger. They're a little old for, so we have the public broadcasting system here, PBS. And so they have PBS Kids, and there's a show on there. It used to be Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and now it's Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood. And Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood has been a game changer for parents, I think, in the US and Canada and wherever else you can get this program. And it just makes me think of, you know, this little, because everything is a song, right? So mom is parenting with a song about how to handle your anger, and dad is parenting with a song about, you know, how to just breathe through your frustration or feel your feelings or whatever it might be. And it makes me think of your program and thinking like, you know, it would fit right in with something like that program. Or, you know, another popular program out of Australia is Bluey, about they're like these little Australian cattle dogs, you know, and they're just this very cute family. And I think a lot of parents appreciate and watch the program as well, because they learn in turn how to be better parents. And so I just love what you're saying. It just makes me get all these crazy cool ideas, and it's probably already being done. Like you said, why reinvent the wheel?
You have to join the program. No, absolutely, Molly. There is some interest from the States so we've got several people that are sort of on the sidelines of it, getting involved. But you're absolutely right. And we're working with an amazing lady she's a dance teacher and primary school teacher, and she writes beautiful stories, and she has lovely little characters that are sort of advocating different things like sleep and you know, and you know, positive relationships, and doing things together, and moving and dancing and that kind of thing. And you're right, you know, you involve, if families can do this together, and the younger the children are, the better, of course, then yeah,
so amazing.
That's what we want to do.
I love it. So how is your project funded? How long is the duration of this project? Like, what do we need to know? Because I'm thinking people are probably listening to this and they want to get involved, but not if it's over already.
Yeah, no, it's not over at all. I mean, I would say we're still really pretty much in the starting blocks. So we've got a number of volunteers. We're working on a couple of different interventions. One of the points, you know, I alluded to the fact that we've got these 4 additional goals that are not specifically related to the actual change that what we will see in the first 2, which is a change of eating behavior and then a resultant improvement in physical and mental health. The other goals relate to being able to scale up, and so to do that, we are running pilot programs to start with. And so those pilot programs are really, really key to influencing what we do in the future. So what we're saying to people is, join the program. Please join as a volunteer. We don't have any funding at the moment. Where we have programs where we know there are costs associated, then we have to apply for funding. So anybody who's listening to this and thinks they would like to help us, or know any potential funders that would like to help us with that, we are always on the lookout for help with funding. And then for our volunteers, so at the moment it is 100% voluntary, and I've been absolutely humbled by the amazing people and qualified people as well who have said, yeah, we want to give something back, we want to join this program and give of our own voluntary time. So that's been fantastic. But we say to all volunteers, please, when you join, please commit to a minimum of 2 years, because to give us a little bit of continuity. So we understand, and we can be very flexible with people's time. You know, we have people that will say, I can do an hour and a half or 2 hours a week with you, and we have people that say I can do 3 or 4 days a week with you. So, you know, we have quite a wide variety of involvement at the moment.
That's so amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm excited to hear more about Collaboration for Kids as it continues to grow and infiltrate and, you know, cross the pond, all of the things. Before I let you go, though, I really want to hear more, or let people know about the other projects that you're working on, because again, it's the Kick Sugar Summit, and it's and the Collaboration for Kids. I really wanted to highlight because I don't think we do enough for the children. I don't know that there ever could be enough for the children. So I want to make sure that we highlighted that. But I know you're involved in a few other projects that you work with Dr. Jen Unwin, that, you know, you and I and some others are involved in some other things. Can you just kind of share what else you're working on in the spirit of kicking sugar, or like trying to educate the world, if it, you know, as if, you know, you might say, on this whole idea of reducing the amount of junk we're consuming?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And there, you know, I'm very excited to be working together with you and Chrissy and Jen and then our other colleagues in Sweden. And yeah, we've got some good projects on the go, haven't we? One of them, I suppose, I don't know whether you've talked previously about our food addiction recovery clinical study. So that's one that's been where we've, well, several of the programs are related to the overall objective to get food addiction recognized as a disease. And the FARCS program, as we called it, and that always makes Jen giggle, but Food Addiction Recovery Clinical Study is the first program that we embarked on, which was to say we've got recovery programs that are being delivered to people recovering from or self-confessed food addicts, we should say, food or sugar addicts. We've got these programs that are being delivered in North America, in the UK, and in Sweden. Can we put together a portfolio or a program that is similar enough for us to conduct a study of these 3 recovery programs and see what the outcomes are for people participating in them? And now we published our first results, which were very good, weren't they? Just a year and a half ago now. We're going to be publishing our next results, which is full year, 12-month data, which we'll publish next year. I think a very interesting program, very exciting program. And I think for me, one of the really important things about that is that today we don't have any, because food addiction isn't recognized as a disease, there's no guidelines or standards or anything like that set for what is a recovery program, what is not, because recovery from what? It's a non-existent disease. And that, for me, poses lots of problems, partly an ethical problem, because anybody can go out and do what we're doing and present a program and say, this is what you need to do in order to recover from food addiction. So for me, the urgency is on getting this recognized as a disease so that we can, one, learn from all the different programs that are out there, but also then so that we can start to work towards build the research in this area and start to work towards something that can be delivered more widely and can support patients more widely. So that's the Food Addiction Recovery Clinical Study. The other really exciting program. Am I allowed to talk about that too? Our consensus building?
I'm sure you are.
Yes, so that is an idea also inspired by the fact that we're trying to get food addiction recognized as a disease. And so we're a group of 4 of us conducting a set of workshops with as many of the experts in the area of food addiction, whether it's clinicians or researchers, academics, that are able to talk, to really share with each other what they can agree on. So we know there's a lot more research that has been done, has to be done, but what can they agree on as pretty much accepted in the area now that we can then present to the WHO? And the reason behind that is that in their original rejection of our first the first time when we applied, sent a formal application to the WHO to recognize food addiction, one of their rejections was the fact that they consider that would be confusing if such a diagnosis or if such a disease was accepted, and also that there is no consensus, that there is disagreement and a lot of different perspectives and opinions on it. So we are trying to see, well, is this the case factually or not? And so dealing with those rejection criteria very pragmatically. And yeah, so the program is we're getting people together in groups, small groups, to discuss what can we agree on related to food addiction, and then hoping to celebrate what we get out of a consensus next year in a large conference in London that everybody's invited to, where and I think we're pretty sure it's going to be, well, it's going to be in May, and we're pretty sure it's going to be the 17th of May, where we're hoping to get as many of these experts together to share their experiences of the consensus workshops, but also to celebrate this what we've achieved in the next months.
Amazing. Now, don't you and Jen also run some kind of weekends or week-long programs, maybe both? Can we hear about those?
We do. Yes, so we run intensive programs that are very much based on our food addiction recovery program, the clinical study. So it's 8 steps, an 8-step program. And we get people together in a beautiful location in the UK. For the last few years, it's been up in the Lake District, which is closer to Jen than it is to me. I'm down on the south coast of England. So, but it's a beautiful place. I've got to recommend it. Anybody who hasn't been to the British Lakes, it's worth it, regardless of the weather. Beautiful part of the world. And we concentrate. We're together in a small group, never more than 14 people. And we work together through an awareness building, a recognition of what's actually happening in our brains and in our bodies, then building towards it's basically the psychosocial, biopsychosocial. We've got the biochemistry in it as well, model, but we also enjoy food together. So we provide low carbohydrate, real natural foods, the way nature intended. We celebrate enjoying those foods together, and weaning ourselves off, getting rid of those foods that are causing us disease and challenges.
Amazing.
So you know what, I should also say that we also have another program that's going to be very similar to that, but it's going to be the ones I've just described in the Lake District are over a weekend, and then we've got another set of programs that we're building towards that will start early next year, first quarter next year, and they will be week-long sessions down in the West Country in the UK, another beautiful part of the world.
That is so exciting. I'm so happy. You know, it's so funny. And now it's getting better, but I used to get folks all the time from the UK or other European countries who they wish for programs over there for them. You know, it seems like those of us in the US and Canada, whatever, there's just more of us for some reason, or we don't know about as many over in your area. So I love that I get to say, oh, you need to get a hold of Jen and Heidi, and here's their information. So I love that you guys are putting those on, and that you're a referral source for us, because I love the work that you guys do. And obviously I am aware of it and I trust it. So I love sending people to you guys.
And, you know, the gratitude goes the other way as well, because it is, if we go back all those years, my introduction to metabolic health here in the UK was through you, to your well, not you personally, but through the American community. So it was much more obvious and easier to find what was going on in America, and maybe that's still the case with food addiction. So thank you very much for highlighting that on our behalf.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that there are more and more people showing up in the UK too, and, you know, that have a similar mission, even if they come at it a different way. So I just appreciate that you guys are there, you know, again, as a referral source. As a clinician, that is always one of the things that I dread, is that when somebody asks me for help and I'm not able to help them in some way, I don't ever want to just say, so sorry, and hang up the phone. I always want to have a place that I can send them. And so I love that I can do that with you guys. Now, before I ask, oh, go ahead.
Can I add one thing? Because it's something that literally just happened over the last 5 days. And I wonder if that's something also for you to consider. You know, in our, certainly in here in the UK, our experience is that it is a vast majority of women who come forward, recognizing their challenges with addiction-like symptoms associated with foods. So we have a very small number of men that join us. And I have just literally in the last day connected one of our one of the men who joined one of our programs here with a gentleman that I know and work with in North America, actually so, and connected the two of them as buddies, because, you know, the support groups tend to be very, very female dominated. And I'm not suggesting that that's not that you know, they can't, that there is any reason why that's a problem, but I've had it from a few men that it would be really nice if we could connect a few more men in this area. So I'm very hopeful for that, and that's across the pond. So that's North America to the UK.
Yes, that's amazing. I think we have 3 men in our program. So it's difficult, right? And it's so interesting, coming from the world of mental health and addiction, like other substances and behaviors of abuse prior to treating food, like 99.9% of my clients were men. So it's been very interesting. So I'm glad, and I will have to find out who that person is so I can connect people with them if that's appropriate.
Or we just do it between ourselves, because we've got more men here as well. And I've said to the 2 gentlemen, I've said, look, we don't have any. They've asked, do we have a protocol for how this buddying should work? And I said, no, this is, you know, where this is an experiment, but help me develop one if you would like us to, and then we can use it to share and inspire others. So let's
Amazing.
be open to that opportunity. We've got more guys here who might easily want to partner. Like
Let's do it. Okay. So before I ask you my final question, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that maybe we need to know from you? Is there anything that any events coming up that you want us to know about? Obviously I'll give people your information if they reach out and they want to get connected for collaboration for kids. Anything else that you can think of?
I don't think so, Molly. I mean, the Collaboration for Kids connection, we need all the help we can get. The conference next year, we'd love as many people to join, and, you know, from everywhere in the world. We've got experts that where we've got experts from Australia, we've got experts from North America, we've got South America, we've got, so yes, don't, feel, whoever's listening, feel very welcome to join. And we'll have to provide you details but for now, people can either contact you or they can contact myself and Jen, and we'll keep people informed about that.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably the main events. And then of course our intensive programs that Jen and I run. So again, just get in touch with us. I think we've still got a few places for our November weekend, which is the 24th to the 26th of November. So if anyone wants to join us in the Lake District then, please let us know as soon as possible.
Amazing. Okay. So before you go, Heidi, what would you say to adults who are able to influence children's food choices? If you could say anything to any adult that has any sort of influence over children and what they're choosing to eat, what advice or what would you say?
Okay, so I'm going to assume here that these are adults that maybe aren't aware necessarily of the dangers of ultra-processed foods and sugary foods. May I do that? May I make that assumption? So I would say, think about or teach yourself or somehow learn about what the basic building blocks are of the human body and brain. Make sure you understand that, and then question whether you are feeding your children those basic building blocks, or if you're potentially feeding them something else which cannot help to build a body or brain, and a worst case scenario can either end up leading them into what you and I and probably most of people who are going to be at your summit experience, which is food addiction, and potentially other disease, metabolic disease, diabetes, the pain that so many of us have experienced. So I think that's it. Think about it, learn about it, and then question whether you're doing it for your own children. Because I think that's what strikes me, Molly. Sorry, I'm going on now, but I think what strikes me is there are very, very few parents that deliberately want to disease their children. So that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies in the fact that we don't understand the basics of what is the purpose of food. We treat food as if it's entertainment. It's what we do when we're bored. It's what we do when we're feeling sad. I'll stop going on. That's
Not
what
at
I
all,
was saying.
Heidi. You don't have to apologize at all. I think, I copped a little feel, like I had a little something show up when you said parents aren't doing this on purpose. And it's so true, right? None of us are doing this on purpose. We're all just doing the best that we can with what we've got. And we've been sold, marketing tactics for years and years and years. And, Vinnie Tortorich has this saying about like your best intentions have been, hijacked or something to that effect. I don't know exactly what he says, but essentially it's like, listen, we're out there, we're shopping, and we think that we're doing the right thing, picking the whole wheat pasta over the like regular pasta or whatever. And really at the end of the day, it's potentially all the same if we're a person with metabolic dysfunction or derangement or whatever it might be. And we really do need to educate ourselves on these things and make choices that make sense for us and for our families. And that doesn't always mean that you're addicted, right? But that it does mean, like even you experienced, right? Things like cognition and memory issues and whatever, or, to have a 9-year-old with such profound insight to say like keeping kids fat, or whatever. It's just like, we've just got to open our eyes and get curious and start challenging the messaging. Like, don't be afraid to push back and ask questions and have a different original thought than what's being pushed on us. And I think that's, for me, Heidi, I think that you do such a good job of questioning the systems, or the man, if you will, that shows up and says, this is how it should be, and this is how it needs to be. And I just appreciate that about you. I appreciate how you think about things and how you want to make changes, and you inspire others to join you. So thank you so much for being willing to be here with me today.
You're so welcome. You know, I've just suddenly thought can I just add one PS?
Yes.
You have a guy, a doctor in the States who any parent or anybody who's questioning whether this is a problem to children, the food environment is a problem to children, have a look at Dr. Robert Pretlow's work. He has, are you familiar with it? He's got so his book, I think it's called Overweight, What Kids Say. Read what children say about being overweight. And it's a very sobering thought, or sobering read, I should say. Anyway, sorry. Thank you, Molly. It's been delightful to talk to you and to see you. And yes. I hope that you have a wonderful seminar.
Thank you. Take care, Heidi.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. And before you go, do one more thing. Stop, think back on the interview while it's fresh in your mind, and write down your favorite takeaway in a special dedicated journal. If you do this, at the end of the summit, you'll have a page or two of nuggets of wisdom to guide you forward. And remember, this is just the beginning. At the end of the summit, you'll be invited to attend a free webinar where I will personally summarize the key insights of our speakers and pull it all together into a practical plan of action. You can also check out our Facebook page where you can connect with others and ask questions, and our Kick Sugar Coach podcast and YouTube channel for additional inspiration. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next interview.